What do you think is the driving force that really makes it a cult following like that compared to being like an Army guy, an Air Force guy, a Navy guy?
So one,
what is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Diefendorfer, and I'm so glad that you're here. We love seeing you dive back into this show week after week, and it is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single episode that helps you with that mental toughness, that mental fitness, that mindset, so that you can stay dangerous and live this always ready lifestyle. If you are brand new to the show, I do want you to know, as a podcast listener, you do have an exclusive discount on the Mountain Tough app. As a listener to this show, all you need to do to take advantage of that offer is go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, and enter the code MOUNTAINPOD. That's MTNPOD, all caps, all one word. That gets you 6 weeks of free training on the Mountain Tough app, where you will find all of our physical programming, all of our workouts, all of our mental toughness curriculum, spiritual and nutritional as well. 6 weeks free. Just remember that code MOUNTAINPOD. Shifting gears now to today's guest. This is a very special episode at Tough Fest this year in the Bozeman Lab. We had a guest speaker come out for the event. Our keynote speaker was Colonel Byron Owen. We sat down with him at Tough Fest to dive into this podcast, dive into his mental toughness and his mindset that has led him through a phenomenal military career, all the way up to being in the Pentagon now as he finishes up his career from the Marine Corps. A phenomenal conversation packed with insights on mental toughness. So please stand by for Colonel Byron Owen. So what do you think of fishing?
I loved it. Yeah, it was super cool. Reminds me when I was a kid, fishing with my dad. San Diego, not a ton of fishing. We have some lakes. Nothing like what we were doing today, though.
Yeah.
Definitely another level.
There's something about just kind of like floating in a drift boat down a river.
Yeah, that was unique, real special.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'll definitely treasure. I'd love to get my kids out here and then have them experience it.
Yeah.
Very different than Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
The life they have out there. Busier. That's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, for some. Not for us.
Yeah, we were thinking about you when you were coming out and all the in-person guests in the Mountain Tough show. We do a lot of remote podcasts, and then we're releasing one per week, but one out of every 4 is in person. So each time an in-person guest comes out, we try to find a way to make them uncomfortable. And we do a little bit of research on them. We talk to their wives sometimes, try to see what they're scared of or what they don't like. And so, like Philip Winchester, we did the rattlesnake hunt. Nick Jones, the Marine Raider that has a Navy Cross, his wife was like, well, he's good at jujitsu, he's good at rifles, he's good at pistols, he's good at archery, but he's absolutely terrible at ball sports. Awful. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, he grew up skateboarding, and he like has no hand-eye coordination for balls, or like soccer balls, basketballs. And so we played volleyball, or we played racquetball.
That's funny.
And it was so fun, like one-on-one racquetball tournament. And we were just like laughing like little kids out there, because you can just smack that ball as hard as you want against the wall. But then every time we've kind of taken that strategy with you, with especially like your current job, your current routine, your current commute, we're like, man, we should actually just take Byron down the river and just let him relax a little bit. And we knew that stretch of the river didn't have cell service, and we knew there was something kind of magical about just floating in a drift boat. And it's also something that Mountain Tough talks about all the time now is, hey, like there's a lot of Americans out there struggling. And one of the reasons that we're struggling is because we don't have any time to be still. We don't have any time to be bored. And there's so much mental clarity that can come out of being bored and being still. And so it was a little different strategy, but it was fun.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the change of pace. It's something that we, in the Marine Corps value, they talk about finding time for yourself, because most of your innovation occurs in times of silence, times of solitude or self-reflection. And that is what we rarely, particularly if you're a high-functioning person or you're in a senior role, some sort of leader, it's the thing that's most valuable, and then we do not provide ourselves to our own detriment.
Yeah.
And so
all like great ideas and great business ideas, great family ideas happen so many times when you're hiking or you're in the mountains and you're just kind of unplugged from everything.
I've yet to see a good idea come from an iWatch,
The smart watches just texting you all the time.
Yeah, just all this data that people are just bathed in, and the brain is incredible. It can do a lot of things, but I think yours was overwhelmed by these little segments of entertainment, or all these bite-sized pieces of things that we lack depth in our relationships, in our lives, in our understanding of ourselves. All things that we lose that connection to the land, to hard work. I don't want to sound like a boomer, and people are going to come out in the comments, on this old guy, talking about the good old days before we had I was talking to guys at work, and then I was telling them I had a phone that I would move in a circle and it would dial people, and they just looked at me like I was a dinosaur. But it was a different time, and there's something to be said about not being so connected to each other, and then being more connected to the outdoors. Probably different for everybody here in Montana, where it seems like more natural part of the culture. And then in DC, though, trying to get kids, especially outside playing sports, so important. Get them on the trails, get them hiking, get them to appreciate nature, see where food comes from.
Yeah.
Like a 4-H program, that is critical. That is America. America was founded on an agricultural base, and I think that we're losing sight of that sometimes in the big cities.
Yeah.
So it's nice to just float down the river and try to catch your own food, even if you're not going to eat it.
Yeah. I can't remember. It may have been you that told me this, or other friends of ours, but one of the rumors out there is that like special operations is getting youth to show up for selection right now. And, like there's an obesity epidemic nationally with kids, worse than ever before. But then there's also kids, 18-year-olds in that age bracket that are showing up for selection, and they show up not obese. They show up physically fit and ready for selection from their fitness level, but they keep breaking their bones all the time. And so like femurs are breaking, tibias are breaking. And so they unpacked that, and they found out that even though they showed up to selection ready to go physically, because they didn't play outside their whole lifetime as a kid, and they weren't outside biking, running around, jumping on trampolines, playing tag, that their bones are much weaker than ever before. Even though, later on in life they got fit, showed up at selection, they just can't get them through because bones keep breaking. Have you heard stuff like that?
No, that's true. And I think that, especially when you're young, for me to reach fitness level X at 45, 44 years old, much more difficult than a kid who's 21 years old, 19 years old. They're invincible. They can ramp up to that physical fitness level. But what happens? Your tendons don't catch up. Your bone density doesn't catch up. Look at, I was growing up, wrestling, you had to hit the pavement. And so you're out there every morning, 5 o'clock, whatever it is, putting in your mileage. But that's from age 12, 10, out there doing soccer. And you're just increasing your bone density, increasing your tendon strength. And so then now at, age 17, 18, now you're like, hey, I'm going to do selection. You have this bigger foundation. And I'm not a scientist or a doctor who can tell you this with any kind of certitude. But that's what we are hearing, from the people who do study this, is that it's different. It's just a different culture, and it has, and the special operations community has it easy to a degree because the people there are more driven, at least in the last year or whatever, how long the prep was. They're trying to get to that Ranger tab or that SEAL Trident. But we still have to man the Army.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger numbers game. The Marine Corps, and the Navy and the Air Force, although the physical fitness standards for entry might be a bit more relaxed. And that is, it's a huge issue. I mean, what happens, God help us, if we had to go to conscription, like you're seeing in Ukraine?
Yeah.
Are people, ready for that, male and female? I don't know.
It seems like a national security question.
It is.
Like, if our next few generations aren't physically and mentally tough, are we going to have national security problems? Especially if we think about, even right now, there's multiple theaters that all could happen potentially at the same time with the threats that we're all monitoring, fairly closely. The amount of people that would require is a lot of people. And so if we don't have physically fit and mentally tough kids, it could pose a threat for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I was a young kid, I used to wrestle. I think wrestling is an awesome sport, one of the best sports for a young man or a woman. And then we used to do these, bull in the ring, and there's different names for this, but, you just got to go one opponent after another, and it's intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're, 12 years old, and you're like, I got to wrestle 4 or 5 people, and I don't want to be embarrassed. But it forces you to demonstrate that I can continue pushing, I can continue forcing myself to some goal, which might be, to at least make it past these, these 5 wrestlers. But then when I go and I have my math exam, or I got a bunch of chores to do, or I have some other task, I can always reset myself to that baseline. Well, this wasn't as hard as bull in the ring. Mm-hmm. Or name your other, it was that final drive in the 4th quarter of high school football or junior high football where I needed to do something. And that, I think, provided other people and other generations a lot of resilience, mental resilience, as you have a physical, mental connection that created toughness. And these two things, they play off each other. And then when you lose that physical component, I think it makes it, and there's still mental challenges, right? I see these kids on the spelling bee, looks tough. That's not for me. But it's not enough, to build that resiliency, because there's just something difficult about experiencing physical pain in a controlled environment, in an athletic setting, that makes you tougher, or it's the cold. I'm going to be outside it's raining. You've played sports.
Yeah.
If it rains and it's cold, it's not timeout. We're not doing the game. Mm-hmm. If it's safe, you're going.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. And sometimes you lose that, I think, when you don't force your kids to experience those challenges,
Mm-hmm. It's been interesting with the Mountain Tough show. Around 200 interviews now. And so for 200 interviews, I've been fortunate and blessed to interview very inspiring guests. And every inspiring guest, we usually get into mindset and mental toughness. And out of the 200 interviews, if you really boiled it down to the question, how do you build mental toughness? There's certainly like a top 3 category of answers across those 200 guest interviews. But I'd say for sure the top answer out of everyone is just doing hard things and finding a way to do hard things and doing hard things on a regular basis and doing hard things regardless of what age you are, because it will atrophy like a muscle if we're not training it. Would you agree that that is going to be on the top of your list when it comes to building mental toughness?
It certainly seems so to me. And I think that if you look at different eras or different places, I think some people, they go through that process in their lives. If you're a child in Sudan, your life is just hard. Mm-hmm. And you have, pick your place. Yeah. Ukraine, these are people that have to pick themselves up every day, and you don't get to feel sorry about yourself. You got a family to feed. You got to put, you may have to defend your family. And so they develop a greater level of, resiliency than, if I forgot to buy chicken nuggies at the store, Jeff Bezos has got my back and he can get it to the, 2 hours to my door. I don't need to leave my house.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, you think about that. I mean, there's just so much convenience. And then sometimes this convenience, this kindness kills us slowly in other ways, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying don't get your chicken nuggies, right? I mean, the kids love them. And I understand the need for convenience, but I think that there's a need for us to challenge ourselves as well, physically as possible. And I think it increases longevity. You look at people who are physically active, who are still mentally challenging themselves. They live longer. They seem younger at older ages. I mean, you've seen it.
Yeah.
There's something to that. One of the things that I've thought a lot about, and so, I joined the Marine Corps. I always dreamed of being a Force Recon Marine, something I always wanted to do. Some sort of SOF. My dad was a Green Beret, and I thought that once I got to that group, I would become special. I would learn new special techniques to do things. Like there was this magic book that I would read, and it would make me this unique individual. And now, reflecting on this, like 22 years later, I don't know if that was the case, right? Mm-hmm. And I wonder so you look at the basic recon course, which is our, selection process. It's got 70% attrition rate. The question I posed to myself, and haven't answered, if I'm being honest, is did we find the special 30%? Or did that 30% become special because they survived what the 70% did not? Like if you didn't quit, would you be the same as us, right? Is that the only dividing line between us, is that I suffered through this training and then was I produced or was I found?
Yeah. It's the $1 million question.
Right? Mm-hmm. And it's hard to quantify. Let me give you another example. I've been looking for this study. I saw it. I should have written down the study. But are you familiar with SEER School?
Yeah.
So for your listeners who may not be familiar, SEER School stands for Survival, Evasion, Rescue, Escape. And it comes out of the Korean War, where some of our service members were captured by the North Koreans and then indoctrinated, brainwashed into betraying their comrades. And then, think Stockholm Syndrome, fell into this cult of, Juche, North Korean, the Americans were, doing wrong. And they studied this and they're like, oh man, we didn't prepare our service members for this kind of indoctrination, where there's pain and then reward, and we're able to brainwash these people, essentially what they did. And so they subject you to some stuff. And then, a lot of, no closed fist, but I mean, there's some beatings going on and get some special treatment. And so what they did is they tested all these service members, right? They found this aircrew kid, right? Let's say. Mm-hmm. And they tested his cortisol levels to look for stress. Through the roof. I mean, he's getting smacked around. He hasn't eaten, hasn't slept, just stressed to the max. And then they tested this kid from the Rangers. I'm not saying he was having a casual day, but it was significantly lower
cortisol
than the air crewmen. It's fascinating, right?
That is.
But then if you're asked the Rangers, they're like, oh, yeah, we're just better. We're just tougher. I mean, they're a pretty tough crew, don't get me wrong, right? And, the scientist or, whoever's running the study is like, well, this isn't fair. Why don't we test the Ranger now when that person's a student? Obviously, you can't go back in time. So let's get the class of Rangers at said name, class of RASP or, whatever it was back then. And guess what? Cortisol levels through the roof. And then they're like, let's take that class as that kid goes to SEER School and let's test that same cadre again. And what do we see? Lower cortisol levels. And so, I mean, I know this is just an anecdote. Yeah. But it seems to me, reading this study, is that we're inoculating ourselves just like we would do to a disease to stress. And so think about this. Just take the Rangers, for example. Yeah. Right? This kid's gone to airborne school. I know you got daredevils drinking Red Bulls and jumping out of planes, but that's scary stuff, right? Yeah. Young kid, 18 years old, you're going up in an airplane, you're jumping out into the pitch black of night. Cortisol levels are high, but then you did that, right? You accomplished that. You put that behind you. That's in the rearview mirror. And then you go to Ranger School. You've done that, and then you did RASP or whatever. you did RIP and you start, doing all these stressful things. And then you get to SEER school. And you're like, well, this isn't that bad. I mean, this isn't my favorite way to spend, an afternoon, but you're able to kind of modulate this stuff and deal with stress in different ways. So now fast forward, you go into combat. You think how much better equipped you are to deal with combat stress, to deal with fear, to compartment that. Or, you've been exposed to, I haven't been to Ranger school, but, there's all sorts of weather effects. There's the cold, the rain, all those things. And you've dealt with all these things individually. So when they come at you all at once, you have a way to compartment that and to push forward. And I think that's to harden your mind, harden your heart, and then get through it with less impacts from that experience. I'm not saying that they're not impacted. There's certainly a lot of combat stress in our special operations community, but I'd also argue that they many times experience more stress. And so relative to the amount of stress they've experienced, they actually emerge in a better position than if they had not undergone all those stressful tests.
So interesting.
Right. And if I was a smarter man, I would, commission my own study and look at this. Maybe tomorrow will be our test bed.
Well, there's a well-known mindset book called Deep Survival, and Deep Survival is written more from an outdoor perspective than a military perspective, and it is from the thesis of a guy did a study that he wanted to see why some people live and some people die in survival situations. So like each chapter is a different life-threatening situation where some people panic and die and a few select people don't panic and live. And so he wanted to know, like in snowy, nasty avalanche conditions, in a helicopter crash in the mountains, in a plane crash in the mountains, in getting lost in the backcountry, why do some people panic and die right away, and why do some people not? And his ultimate answer was exactly where you're headed. And his ultimate answer was the people that have, he calls it a core of cumulative experiences. If my core of cumulative experiences is deep with depth, and I've done a lot of different hard things, then I'm not going to panic when other things confront me in the way of adversity. And so the people that were surviving in his book were not more medically trained. They weren't smarter. They didn't have higher IQ levels. In his book, they weren't even more or less physically fit than the people that were dying. But what they did have is they had 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 other adventurous trips in their lifetime that built this huge core of cumulative life experience versus the people that maybe their helicopter crashed into the mountain the first time they were on the mountain. And so that created complete panic, and that panic led to death. And so I think when we talk about mental toughness and the idea of just find hard things to do and do hard things on a regular basis, a lot of what is going on is your core of cumulative experience is just building and building and building. And I always think about, I think we all have the polar opposite of that in our lives, whether it's a coworker, a family member, that like the simplest phone call will set them off the hook, or the smallest little financial problem will create complete utter panic. And a lot of the times I think it is because that core of experiences is not very strong, and so everything looks very, very scary and difficult, because we've read thousands of testimonials around your first point that, like, when you do something really, really hard in the morning, then whatever thing you run into that's hard in the afternoon doesn't seem so hard anymore. It actually just seems like a normal part of the day. And so that building of hardness has to happen by just continuing to take yourself outside of a comfort zone.
100%. You know, the other aspect that we don't always see in the military is I think positivity. And I really think that particularly in survival situations, you have, so obviously you have the resilience of being in a hard situation or cumulative experiences. But then if you don't have a positive outlook and you don't believe that you can do something, you fall into the self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, you don't think you're going to do it? Well, then you're not going to do it. Or you think you can do it, and then you'll will yourself into doing that thing. So 2 points on that. I remember I ran into a SEAL. I was a kid. I was a Boy Scout, and I got to go out to San Clemente Island with my troop and see the training there. And I asked this SEAL chief, and I was like, how do you get through buds? It's like a question a kid would ask. But he gave me a really good answer. And he said, the problem is that some people want to get through all of buds. And sometimes it's too much to think about because it's really hard. All you really need to do is make it to the next meal and just take it into chunks. I can make it to breakfast. That's only 3 hours away. That's not that hard. And then I know I'm going to have a little bit of respite at breakfast because I'm going to eat breakfast. And then, like lunch, that's only, 6 hours away. Don't do my math. I don't know. Don't check my math here. But, it's a period of time. It's small. It's 5 hours. It's whatever, right? And just to the next event. And then he says at some point, then you'll be done. But if you think, oh, I got 6 months of this, or it's a 2-year-long pipeline, and then you'll fail.
Yeah.
Because you're going to psych yourself out.
Those micro goals. Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app.
And then the other example I'd give you is actually one of Montana's own, one of my good friends, fellow Force Recon Marine, Tommy Hartrick. He's from Montana, I think just out of Kalispell. Kalispell, thank you.
Yeah.
And he died, unfortunately. He was in the DRC doing some contracting work, still working for the behalf of this nation. Malaria. I always thought the only two things that could kill Tommy Hartrick were Father Time and malaria, or Mother Nature and Father Time, excuse me.
Wow. Malaria,
yeah, really tragic. I mean, this was so his story, he's a Nasiriyah vet, which is one of our most ferocious battles of the invasion of Iraq. He was in Fallujah, Battle of Fallujah, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, and I think he was in Ramadi. But there's a man with a tremendous amount of combat experiences. He wounded, I think, twice, multiple prop recipient. And we were in this pitched battle in Afghanistan. And it's what we talked about in the first podcast. I'm not
Yeah.
going to relive it here, but it was just really difficult situation.
That battle was insane.
Just nuts. And I asked the Marines there, so there was a small element in this really precarious situation. And then, I talked to Tommy afterwards, and he's talking about when they were killing the Taliban, they were so close that the blood mist was falling back on them. I mean, that is, near, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Just terrific. I mean, you're, within smelling distance of the people that you're fighting. And I asked these Marines, and I was like, because you do the after action review and you talk about these things. And I said, what was going through your mind? And they said, well, at first, because we took contact and it was really heavy, and you're just digging at the dirt, trying to survive. And then, and we actually have a picture of this, and there's Tommy just smiling. That guy's been through a lot. He's been through Nasiriyah. He's been through Fallujah, all these places. And so it must not be that bad if he's having a good time. He's laughing, and, he was cracking himself up because he hit a guy with the 203 at 450 yards, and then the guy detonated, and then he made the comment that he'd turned that guy into a Mr. Potato Head, and he was getting a kick out of this. And then anyhow.
That optimism, though.
Yeah, and so it's a joke, right? It's kind of a morbid joke. I asked Tommy afterwards, and I said, "What was seemed pretty rough, but it didn't seem like it to you." And he's like, "Oh no," he's like, "I had no expectation of surviving that, none." He's like, "We were surrounded on three sides." He's like, "We were within rock throwing distance of the enemy. Their numbers were it was bad." But he's like, "What are you going to do?" He's like, "I can't let these guys see that." And so he's like, "We'll just do our best." And he betrayed none of his lack of confidence in their situation as Marines, and quite the opposite.
Wow.
And you think about if he had panicked, it would have caused them to panic tenfold. And think about your ability to use your weapon system, to be accurate, to take measured and correct decisions. And then you've now created the result that you had intended, right? You're like, I thought I couldn't do it, and then you can't do it.
Yeah.
Versus these Marines think they can do it, driven by this man's leadership, despite his own misgivings, and then they think they willed it into existence. And it's just incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. That kind of leadership, there's so many stories, I think, in the GWAT, particularly at the NCO level, that we've failed to capture. I think we've done ourselves a disservice as a nation, because those stories are out there. There's thousands of people, maybe not thousands of people like Tommy.
Yeah, but it's we call it pessimistic optimism that is a true gift of all like mental toughness greats. Yeah. And you see it a lot in backcountry hunting. Like your best hunting partner ever is pessimistically optimistic. So it'll be -30, snowing sideways, like nothing can stay warm. Your fingers are numb. The snow's hitting you in the side of the face. And your best partner that's pessimistically optimistic, he'll laugh and say, like, it's -30, at least it's not -40.
That's right.
And as soon as he says that, you're like, man, yeah, it's really not that bad. And it's just a gift of all like great mindset people. And that is interesting because with this show, one thing that struck me last year was one of my friends, his dad is paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And he defined his father as being the most mentally tough person he's ever met or been around or experienced. And this guy has played pro rugby in Europe and hunted and guided all over the world. So that was interesting that his dad was the most mentally tough, especially so many times with mental toughness, you think about physical strength. And with his dad being in a wheelchair, for him, nothing about him thinking about his dad's mindset revolved around physicality. But what he said is like, just nothing can bring that guy down. Like no financial thing, no drought, no famine, nothing can bring his mindset down from being optimistic, which is fascinating because so many times with Mountain Tough, we use physicality to build mental toughness because doing hard things, an easy hack to doing hard things is doing a hard workout. Because I think nowadays we do have to manufacture adversity because we aren't growing up in Sudan, like you said. So manufacturing adversity has to happen for us to do hard things, to become more mentally tough, so that when we do run into something extremely hard, we're prepared for it. But the optimism, regardless of the circumstances, is a big one for sure.
Yeah, there's certainly been a lack of popularity for internship programs in Khartoum, Sudan. Maybe we'll have to sponsor one.
That is interesting because like you said, we worked in Uganda and those kids are so tough over there. And then as a father, you want your kids to be extremely tough, mentally tough and physically tough. But no amount of adversity we're going to throw their way is going to be anything like some people around the world experience.
So I think it'd be great. I mean, we kind of joke about, doing a semester abroad at the University of Khartoum. That's not a good example because this is incredibly war-torn. But, I spent time in Papua New Guinea, for example, looking for missing in action with Joint PWMI Accounting Command. And you just had to walk long distances, and then they just really give you appreciation. I mean, these people are going 2 to 3 hours of walking to go to work and then to come back, or the market, or that whatnot. There are places that are safer where we could still, maybe it's a Habitat for Humanity like organization where you're just going to go build churches or go build houses for people in, I don't know, Honduras or Guatemala or Bolivia. Maybe somewhere is a little more stable, and get an appreciation for how life is outside the United States. I think you come back a lot more rich.
Yeah.
In every aspect, morally, mentally, physically. And you're disconnected from social media, and you see kind of what really matters. And they're very strong families, probably maybe deeper than we have.
Yeah.
Because there's less, I hate sitting at the dinner table. My whole family's got the phone up, disconnected from each other, and then connected to stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something to be said about that. I don't know.
I think there is for sure. How do you view your mindset changing as your career has changed and evolved, where now you're taxed mentally in a different way than you were kind of like in the Force Recon days?
I think for me, so something that I've carried over from my Force Recon days is that, and it's funny I talk about recon because I try not to talk about it that much, because for me it's very past tense. I'm very proud of my service with a lot of legends, and it's been a really blessed experience for me, and I draw a lot from it. But one of the big recon ethoses is do it today. Like, don't live on yesterday. It's like you gotta bring it to the table today. And so for me, I'm a colonel in the Marine Corps. I see some people who are not bringing it. It's very easy, particularly as you get more senior, to just kind of ride on what you've done, ride on the accomplishments of the people around you. And so I try to engage myself mentally, try to invest in understanding the things, that's going on in the workplace, which can be hard. Some of these like technological programs, it's like we're not really born in it like the younger generation. And then we get less cycles with stuff.
Yeah,
because we're always, we're called upon a lot of things that I can't just sit here and dedicate on this program or this concept, but it's super important. Or like even with my kids, we're all busy, but I'm sitting there. It's kind of silly. It's gonna sound like a Duolingo ad, but I told my wife it's important for my kids to see that we are challenging ourselves mentally, and I'm trying to learn Japanese. And so every day I'm plugging away on this, and my kids can see that, I'm busy, but I'm still going to take some time and try to challenge myself mentally. It's something that's not related to a passion of mine, although that is kind of a passion of mine, to learn languages.
But just stretching that brain.
That's right. I'm doing something different, you know, and hoping to be a role model for them in that way. But like, you know, talk about cyber. I mean, I pivoted to cyber and it was very difficult for me to learn a completely new environment, but that is what the job required. And I saw a lot of my peers who weren't doing that, who weren't put in the cycles, put in the study reps, you know, sitting there and talk with the Marines to better understand what they were doing. It was really difficult. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Because it was just so foreign. And then I didn't go to a course for it. I didn't have time. I was like, I'm not going to leave for 4 or 5 months to go to a course. I'm going to have to do this on my own. And that for me was my kind of mental crucible. And so as I go back, it's going to be the same thing. You know, whatever my job is I got to do the best that I can at that position and, you know, not let my troopers down. You know, the other thing I'll tell you is it's real easy to focus on the job as it exists. And then to lose sight as you go up the chain of the people at the contact layer that do the work.
Yeah.
And it fuels me to connect with the people, you know, rowing the oars. And it's funny, man. I discovered a young kid, and he said, I haven't been paid my travel claim for moving here. It's been 4 months. It's a long time. It's not supposed to take 4 months. And then, yeah, he's getting nowhere. I was like, huh. So that's me typing. I'm typing. And I was like, hey, team, what's going on? I got this young trooper who needs to get a travel claim. He's an Army guy. I'm a Marine guy, but let me know when I can meet to better understand the Army's travel claim process so we can get this Marine his money that he deserves.
Yeah.
How long do you think it took him to fix that?
20 minutes.
Maybe 24 hours. Because they're like, sir, no need to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get him the money. But I was like, so why didn't you do that yesterday? Like, why did it take all this, you know, machinations for this young trooper to get the money? That's why this soldier is going to get out of the Army. He's not being taken care of.
Like that.
That's not a dig on the Army. That's just this particular example.
Yeah.
I have plenty of Marine examples. And then but that felt good to me. But you got to take time to do that stuff. And so I try to spend, 20% of my time out trying to circulate. But that obviously is taken away. You only have so many cycles in the day to learn about. My present job, I have to learn a lot about geopolitical events, whether it's Israel, Gaza, we talked about Sudan, South Sudan, DRC, that kind of stuff. But it is super important because when we lose sight of the young NCOs at the contact layer at our own peril, it's so easy to do. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yeah. You can just get more and more removed.
Oh yeah, and then you're just on the computer all day. And it's really easy to be, impersonal and to be very callous when you're just staring at emails and then not people. Yeah.
But you got to be intentional about it.
Yeah, you got to get out of your comfort zone and go talk to some young troopers. I could tell stories all day. I had a young soldier. She didn't have her BAH. 6 months. She's not getting paid for housing. That's like $3,000 a month. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
We fixed it.
Just getting down on the floor and working with them.
Applying a little pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eagles soar, but they can also apply pressure when necessary.
They also have talons.
Yeah, that's right. When using the correct direction. But that was super cool.
With everything you have going on now, is it hard? Was it hard? Is it hard for you to prioritize and execute? Because you have a lot you're watching every single day. Was it overwhelming at first?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you go into crisis mode, everything's a crisis, and then if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. And so just trying to backwards planning and time management becomes so critical. So we do 8 or 12-hour shifts, and then you kind of have to say, hey, what are my big blocks? What are my big do-outs? And so, how do I check these things off? And then, how do I task manage my people so that I'm, chunking this down into blocks for everybody to kind of, the other thing I'll shift to is we often fail to provide people with time And so I'll eat up all the time. And then I was like, hey, you need to do your portion. You're like, well, I got 10% of the time. And so I've always been trying to be very conscious of, you know, hey, if there's a task that Dustin needs to do, I need to give it to him up front. And so let me prioritize things that I need to, like, I provide you with something. It's a mission statement or an end state. And not to wait till after I'm done with all my work to then give you your portion and then make you go through this complete crisis exercise. Yeah. And for some of these young people, that's all they do is they get my crisis and the next person's crisis. So they're just rowing like crazy.
Just nonstop. And
then not getting awarded for it.
Yeah.
No awards, no bonuses, no nothing. Just the complete wrong way to do business. So at least with my section, we try to be better about that.
It seems like you have like a really deep why that's been driving you throughout your whole career. Do you think about what that deep why is, or do you know what that deep why is?
You know, it's funny you say that because if you look at the beginning of my career, you know, the first third, I really wanted to be Force Recon Marine, specifically First Force. And so there's first, second, and third. And I just really was fascinated with the West Coast Force Recon Company. So I did 2 tours with 1st Battalion, 1st Marines as an infantry platoon commander, so rifle platoon, and a cat platoon. And then I made it to Force Recon. I'm at like year 6 or 7 of my career, a little early to peak. And so in some ways, I didn't lose my why because I'm still around Recon Marines. And then now I make it through, you know, another third of my career, and then I go to cyber, and in some ways you're kind of losing the why then. So what's driven me to this point was very physical, very demanding, very recon centric, and then now this new environment is anything but. And that was kind of a difficult inflection point for me. And I think that what I did, and I don't know why I'm this way, maybe it's my parents or my upbringing, but I've always been very NCO centric in my career from when I was a second lieutenant to now. And I saw a gap where our Marines, particularly in the cyberspace community, were not valued. You know, people didn't necessarily seek out their opinions. It was very officer centric. And so I decided that I would apply what I'd learned in the Force Recon community, where, you know, we very much, if I'm going to do a breach, I want to speak to the breacher. I don't want to speak to the platoon commander. I don't want to speak to the company commander. I want to speak to the breacher. I want to hear what's on that person's mind. What are the considerations that you have? And you can extrapolate this analogy out.
Yeah.
And so then I applied that to cyber. And, you know, people are like, this is different, this and that. And I was like, I don't think it's that different. It's still people that use computers to execute operations against other people who are using computers. And so I think this is a people-centric organization and not a computer-centric organization. And then what do I find? Again, it's the same story I just told you. Finding Marines not getting awards, not being allowed to take leave, not being able to attend schools that then negatively impact their promotions. And so I think that the people, once again, became my why. You know, my drive was to give back to these young people, even though the aspect of my personal development or my personal goals, which was, you know, becoming the Recon Marine, gaining that specialty, was gone. The need to reinvest, to give back to the young Marines became a driver for me in a lot of ways. It also helps that I've been getting out of the Marine Corps for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, this will be the last one, you know, and here I've been 22 years and, you know, still going. And, you know, even like when I'm on the watch, and it can be a grind. And I'll have this Marine hit me up on LinkedIn or on email, and they say, hey, I heard you're coming back to the fort. So excited to work with you again. And then you may not remember this, but, you know, you were at this thing with me, and you made a decision that then allowed me to go to X, Y, or Z, or I got this opportunity because you advocated for me. And I was like, well, that's just like the basic stuff. And then they're like, well, you know, not everybody's doing the basic stuff.
And it can be life-changing.
That's right. And so I'm looking at this kid now, you know, got a lot of seniority, or, you know, we had one go to I think the Naval Postgrad School and has a master's degree. I mean, I knew this kid was, Lance Corporal, and now they're super successful. And then they're like, I was going to get out, but then, you change the culture of this team and this organization to be something that I appreciated. And I've worked my career now to foster that same level of engagement and environment for my people. And that's just like mind blowing. And so
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled to go over there and then just try to contribute any way I can to continue to foster that. Same thing I did at 3rd Radio when I was there. And then I'm hearing about, I had a young woman, Vanessa Valverde, and she really wanted to go to school and use her GI Bill. And so I never know my time. I got bad timing, and I don't want to keep my mouth shut. And so Senator Hirono and Senator Reed were visiting. Senator Reed's on the Senate Armed Services Committee.
Yeah,
and he's an Army paratrooper. He's a service member. Obviously now he's a senator. I wonder which one he's prouder of. But so they visit, and Senator Hirono's like, got all these senior folks. And I thought I was going to talk to some young Marines. And so we had a lot of like generals and people. And I was like, actually, I got something to display over here. I know you came to see this big dog and pony show, but I got some Marines over here. They're pretty sharp. Corporals, sergeants. And so I put her in front of them, and then she just wows them. She's just so brilliant. They all were, all those Marines. And then she was talking to the senator, and then they're like, oh, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, what she wants to do is go to Harvard. And I was like, I think that's in your district, Senator Reed. And he's like, well, I think you need to look at the districting. I'm like, it's close,
it's
right?
Close.
Right? I think he's Rhode Island, right? It's New England, you know? They wear Patriots shirts.
It's close enough.
Yeah, and so Senator Hirono said, I'll write you a recommendation. And then she's looking at Reed, and he's like, well, I mean, if you're going to write one. And so I'm not saying that's why she got in, but so she wrote me like 6 months ago, and she's at Harvard, thriving, and she's getting a national security internship of some sort in the DC area, just killing it. I think she's going to Hawaii actually, but
wow.
That's
like amazing.
How cool is that?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's just and it's all her. I mean, she's the one that's gotten into those things, but just to be in a position where you can just give a little push. I got another Marine. He's going to George Mason right now, getting a master's. Similar situation, and it's those little stories, those little connections that I think keep driving me to that. I wouldn't say next level, next location.
It's interesting.
I think I'm going horizontally at this point.
Well, it's fascinating because your leadership comes from your love of people, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then your love of people makes you a great leader that people want to be around. And then because you can create a great culture around loving people, then you continue to kind of climb up into different ranks and different positions. But that love of people can often get missed by leaders because a lot of times it doesn't seem like it's bad intentions. It seems like it's the leader becomes overwhelmed and starts forgetting about the people, not from like a bad intention standpoint, but from like a bandwidth standpoint. But then when that happens, the organization really starts to suffer because the people rowing the boat don't feel appreciated or valued. That's crazy. Hey guys, I did want to interrupt for a quick minute right here and let you know about some supplements I've been taking. I did shy away from supplements for a long time. I was always cautious about what they were made out of, where they were from, and who the team was behind the brands. But over the last couple of years, I've got to meet the team at Mountain Ops from top to bottom, and they are an amazing group of humans. I've got to know the CEO, Trevor Farnes, really well, and he is a mission-focused individual that cares about humans living a better quality of life so that they can have that abundant life. So over the last couple of years, he has helped me add some things that have changed the game for me. One of those things that I've added is creatine from Mountain Ops. It helps me maintain some muscle mass, but also it's a big player in cognitive function, one of the most researched supplements out there. Also, I've added reds, greens, and protein, all from Mountain Ops. What I found as a busy professional, always on the run, I do eat a whole foods diet for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but on the go, it's hard to get enough vegetables, fruits, and protein. So I've added that from Mountain Ops, and it has significantly changed the game. I can feel it in my performance. I haven't got sick for a long, long time, and I can certainly feel it in my mental clarity as well. The last thing I've added is the Mountain Tough Hydrate product for the backcountry, for hunting season. When I'm in the hills, I do run short on those electrolytes. We even have a Mountain Tough flavor, the Mountain Tough Lemon Lime Hydrate, and that is a game changer for hydration in the backcountry. So I keep it really simple. That is all I've added to my protocol, and it has certainly helped me, and I certainly believe in the team and the culture behind Mountain Ops. They have started an initiative that's been around for a while called Conquer Hunger. Conquer Hunger is giving meals to hungry kids that aren't getting enough food, and they've given out over 6 million meals plus to kids through their Conquer Hunger initiative. So every order that happens at Mountain Ops, a percentage of that order goes to Conquer Hunger. So certainly an incredible company, an incredible culture. As a listener to the show, you do get an exclusive offer to Mountain Ops, so make sure you check that out. The offer is incredible as a first-time purchase at mountainops.com. So build your order if it's your first time. They are offering you a 20% exclusive discount. All you need to do is enter the promo code Mountain Tough, all one word, all caps, for 20% off your first order at mountainops.com.
So let me, I actually haven't really talked about this a lot. Let me give you two things that I would do and I've taken a bunch of commands. I've been really fortunate that way. Very different. I would always approach each command with a reset. Let's take a break from what we're doing, because a lot of times you're just rowing. Are we rowing in the right direction? So let's just take a moment to reevaluate, where do we need to go? So we call it operational design and then campaign planning. Mm-hmm. Is our objective. So first, let's take the objective out the table. Let's define the end state that we need to accomplish. Like, what is that? What are the conditions that need to be set? What does this need to look like over here on the right for us to be successful? Don't just say the objective. It's got to be all these things in order for us to meet the task we're given. Let's make sure that we understand the task. Excuse me. Are there any implied tasks that we need to accomplish that's a subset of whatever we need to achieve to hit that end state? And then let's start driving lines or drawing them down of what do we need to do, with the intermediate objectives to hit these things. Mm-hmm. Do we need a better culture? Do we need academic event? I don't know what that is, but a lot of times we lose sight of that because we're just so busy rowing. We might be rowing in the wrong direction. Yeah. Or we can tighten that up. So that's one aspect. I've done that at every one of those commands. And a lot of times, even if we don't significantly change the direction we're going, we've now exposed a larger group of people to the reasons for why we're doing these things. Yeah. Because like in the Marine Corps, like the OPSO, the operations officer is the one with the plan. I was like, it's got to be deeper than the person with the plan. Mm-hmm. And so in the process of this, and then you involve all these people, at some point, hopefully you've gotten buy-in on why are we doing this way. And then maybe they don't want to do it that way, but then you start looking at the constraints and the restraints that you have, the things that you have to do and the things that you can't do. And they're like, okay, I understand. There's a bureaucratic reason why we can't do it the way I want. They
understand, and it creates ownership.
That's right. And so now it's not my mission, it's our mission, our objective. And then the second thing is it's hard to scale up. And then so you got to start investing on, I would consider, 2 layers below you. And I need you to lead the way that I lead. And so unfortunately, this can involve personal risk. And you have to create an environment that is based on trust tactics, where I trust implicitly the people subordinate to me until I can't. And you've demonstrated, and usually you fall off the path with me if an integrity violation or, some sort of moral malfunction that just makes you untenable. I had a Marine who he had a different interview for onboarding male Marines and female Marines. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I don't need to get in the details of it, but
Yeah.
I fired that guy within 45 days of taking command. Did it appropriately, went through all the steps, that we did, but that person had to leave because they were cancer. And there's just some things you can't remediate.
Yeah.
I hope that they have the best opportunity in their next location and then they're able to be successful, but they just could not stay within our organization.
You have to hold that line.
You have to hold it. There's some standards, once you've established the rules of the board, you can't play the game if you're not going to follow those rules. And so sharp repercussions on the outer edges, but then otherwise, like we're all going to drive, to Park Place and then pass go and get our $200, right?
Yeah.
And then when you invest in your immediate subordinates and then the layer below them and to start to express to them, I was like, this is the way you do business. You invest in your people. They will do well. They'll make you look well because people selfishly want to succeed. And I was like, you don't have to be what we would consider a spotlight ranger, where the spotlight needs to be on me. He's like, you should always push that spotlight down, push that award. You're always going to get credit as a leader. So you don't need the credit. Give it to the people who deserve it, who are at the contact layer, who very rarely receive it. And if you do that, I'm convinced that you will always be successful, even in the most challenging situations, because you're going to have buy-in. You have clearly defined objectives. And then so even when you're not pushing the cart, all these people are pulling in the right direction because it's a common goal, a common objective for everyone to be successful. And then when the rewards are shared, the glory is, divided amongst everybody, like what's not to like? And then we might have an environment that's fun. Who doesn't want to be in a fun environment? And so, get the swag out, be proud of being, third radio or first force, a little bit easier for the soft community, but you should have pride in where you work. And you shouldn't, say the name of the organization. People are like, man, it's a grind.
Yeah.
Watch is a grind, but the organization should be something that you're proud and excited to be a part of. You get to tell your kids about it. That's right.
Yeah.
And you create that environment. And so then you found, I've been doing this for 22 years now, and I didn't come up with this philosophy. They taught it to me a long time ago. Now I see Marines who I'd mentored applying that same methodology that I learned as a lieutenant in the Blue Diamond, 1st Marine Division, and they're being incredibly successful. And they're creating amazing command climates where people are respected, they're given the tools they need to thrive, and then they keep moving that ball forward. I know I'm mixing analogies here. There are not a lot of balls involved in Monopoly. But if there were, you'd be going around the board, it's been super fun.
It's cool because that style is the only way to really multiply and leave a legacy. Because if you don't have people that'll keep that train rolling forward after you depart, then the whole thing falls apart and crumbles. But if you're always looking a layer or two down and raising those people up, especially with your leadership style, that's what allows these dynasties and these legacies to go decade after decade after decade.
And for those listening, what I'm talking about is trust your people and then refuse the tendency to become a micromanager, because that's what I see most often, is that you have to loosen the reins of control and allow your people to run instead of just grabbing onto them and then micromanaging every inch of their lives. Yeah. And you might get over the finish line, but everyone's going to hate doing it. They're going to hate you for it. And it's just going to create a terrible organization with high attrition as people leave and they go elsewhere. And I'm telling you, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Man, I joined the Marine Corps. I had 2 Marines who were prison or Marine Corps option. That is a wide spectrum of talent, right?
Prison or Marine Corps.
Yeah, I had a guy, I don't know if I should talk about this on the podcast. He showed up. He's kind of a seasoned Marine coming from boot camp. And he's a double, he'd left after Desert Storm. And he said that I'd learned all these skills in the Marine Corps that really, made me very successful in the business world. I had discipline. I knew how to plan. I was motivated. And I understood logistics, all of which I applied to a new career in running drugs from Miami to New York. And he's like, they loved it. I was super reliable. And he said, one day I was running late because, whoever was supplying me the goods wasn't there when they were supposed to. And so I'm going 90 up to 95 to make time because the guys are waiting for me in New York are super punctual, and they don't like to be kept waiting. And he said that he gets pulled over by a statey in Georgia. And this kid's from like Philadelphia, or he's got an accent. I can't do the accent, but he said, son, don't nobody go that fast in Georgia. And he turns to the cop and he says, Sherman did, which was a mistake. And this kid's like, I should have mouthed it off because I forgot that I'm rolling dirty with 20 keys in the trunk.
No way.
Yeah, and so the cop's like, oh, looks like your taillight's out. Let me, pop the trunk. Boom. 7 years. And the judge was an infantry Marine from Vietnam, and he said, you owe me 7 years, and you're going to do it on a chain gang here in Georgia, or you're going to do it back in the Corps, because I know they'll fix you. And this kid looked me dead in the face, and he said, I made a mistake, sir. I said, send me back to Georgia.
He'd rather go to prison.
Put me on the chain gang.
That is bonkers.
But he did great. He did great. Because you bring him back in the fold. Obviously, the Marine Corps broke that Marine down. Mm-hmm. Not in a bad way, but, in the boot camp, School of Infantry process, because they made him go back. I don't think he did boot camp again, but then now he's in a forward environment. Obviously, this Marine has stumbled in his life. But what does he not want to do? He doesn't want to let anybody down. And now he's trusted again. We're looking at this Marine. He's like, I trust you. I know you had some challenges when you came here, but this is today. That was yesterday. Don't do that again. But do you want to let your fellow Marines down in a combat environment where that may cost them their lives? That kid never slipped. He stayed on the path, and he was a reliable, he was a good Marine. Not like 100%. Like not like a first sergeant might not consider him a good Marine. Like his hair may have been a little long, and his uniform not 100%. But when it came to war fighting, he was as reliable as any other Marine, despite his background. And I think part of that, though, is because we didn't treat him like a criminal or a screw-up.
Yeah.
He got a fair shot, and everybody gave him a clean slate. And then I think he was motivated to do even more because he had something to prove that, he was just as good as everybody else. And then he did awesome.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we were talking on the boat today that there's those three things that can cause most humans to find fulfillment in their life, and one of them being autonomous. And being autonomous means you can't have someone micromanaging you. And so if someone is micromanaging you, you're not going to have all three of the things required to be living an abundant, fulfilled life. And so many of us can do that as leaders because giving up trust can be difficult. But then two is the mastery thing, which the mastery thing is very interesting from a mindset and mental toughness component because so many strong mentally people are self-learners and lifelong learners. You even mentioned it a bit ago where you're just learning Japanese just to learn Japanese, even though you don't necessarily have a need for it right now. And you see that across the board. You see that very prevalent in special operations where people are either in or they're out, but they're working at mastery at work all the time. But then a lot of times they're focused on mastery outside of work on a hobby or a topic. And then the big thing that you see in the ones that succeed really well coming out post-retirement is then they go and do this whole new realm of learning something new. And it's like that self-learning, always a learner, lifelong learner. It's part of the three characteristics that keep us fulfilled, but it's also one thing you see across the board with mentally tough people. And then, the third one being tribe. And so are you part of a culture? Are you part of a like-minded community? And so as you were talking about that kid, it made me think of that because all three start happening. Like he's able to go autonomous with some leadership, and then a lot of mastery in the Marine Corps. And then all of a sudden that tribe, that like-minded community, when you can provide people with those three and you can create an environment where those three variables can flourish, some really amazing things can start to happen.
100% agree. And that's the beauty with the Marine Corps, because in the soft community, it's like the NFL. You know, if your 40 time starts to slip, you're going to get traded away, right? Or you're just going to get cut. You know, we don't make cuts. If we cut somebody, it's because they've had a moral malfunction of some sort and they just cannot remain in service. But barring that, you know, it's our job to coax all the performance and development we can out of that individual, regardless of their start point. And I think that there's something beautiful about that. And it's not something I do, it's something that we do as an organization, whatever level team that is. I'd like to think that every Marine who enters our program, enters our service, comes out better for having been a part of it. And then they're part of us forever. That's one of my favorite aspects of the Marine Corps, is there's no such thing as a former Marine. You're always part of that tribe, wherever you're at, you know, part of that community. And I don't think anybody else is quite like that.
No one else talks like that, at least that I've seen.
It's a bit of a cult, but it's my favorite cult.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah,
cult.
we're full in, man.
Yeah. That's hard to do. It's hard to create a culture that strong that you would be offended by being called a former Marine. There's not many things like that in the world where the culture is that strong.
And so varied too. You know, you ask anybody, I think, you know, like my buddy's, he flies F-18s. But the thing he's most proud of, that's incredible, is he's a Marine. You ask a Force Recon Marine or, you know, a Raider or any of these people who've done special, incredible things, Navy Cross recipients, this still comes down to I am a Marine. And that's something that I did when I was a Marine, but this is the common thing that unites all of us, regardless of your specialty, you know, what you went to Afghanistan or Iraq, you know, just sharing that common bond of going through the crucible, getting your Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, becoming Marine is such a transformational event for us. It's hard to describe. It's special.
What do you think is the driving force that really makes it a cult following like that compared to being like an Army guy, an Air Force guy, a Navy guy?
So one, and it may have changed, but for the longest time, we were the only service that had history in our boot camp. Two, I'm not here to knock the other services because they're all brilliant in their own regard. But, you know, when I was in the Navy, at the Naval Academy, not really in the Navy, but I was in the Naval Academy, you look at all the heroes, you know, what was one thing in common with all of them? They're all admirals or captains. That's not the majority of the Navy. Can some young seaman in auxiliary gang look up at Admiral Kidd and say, that's like me? No, but if you ask Marines, you know, who are your heroes? It's, you know, Smedley Butler, who's a sergeant major. You know, it's John Baslone, gunnery sergeant, you know, or I think he was a sergeant when he was a Medal of Honor. Yeah, maybe he was a staff sergeant. But, you know, these are heroes that are very similar to the vast majority of our service. And so you learn about what your forefathers did, and it's connected to everyone. And so you look at the Marines, you look at a uniform, you can't tell if that person's infantry or supply or logistics, because there's two things on their uniform that distinguish them from the other people: the rank, just common to all, and the Eagle of an Anchor, common to all.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, there's no unit distinguishing patch. There's no, I mean, we have naval devices, and so if you're a pilot, obviously you wear pilot's wings, or, you know, you're airborne qualified, you're going to wear that. But by and large, you know, we're all the same. Even in our dress uniforms, you can't tell what your specialty is.
That
you can see where you've been.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I think that's pretty neat. And so we focus on the things that are common and not the things that are unique. The only thing that's unique is that we're Marines. That makes us unique to society, not unique from each other. And so...
yeah, it makes that more of like a flat organization where some of that organizational hierarchy is there, but it's not everything that's driving the organization.
And so everyone becomes special. Every Marine, from admin to special operations, is related to Ira Hayes, who raised the flag over Iwo Jima. And then the other aspect, I think, is the every Marine or rifleman. So we're all expected to do this baseline combat proficiency. And we train everybody to the same standard. I mean, obviously, if you're in the infantry, there's a different standard. And you continue to adapt to that and evolve your combat proficiency. But it gives us a more common baseline where, if we're the only service. If you're a JAG, you're not limited duty. You have to go through TBS and do the same 6 months basic infantry course as everybody else. A JAG is a lawyer, judge advocate. You're an admin Marine, you still have to do that. You're still going to qualify in the rifle range. And you look at Chosen Reservoir. I mean, they put the headquarters battalion on the line. They're like, this is like, General Mattis, he deployed the band. And he's like, not a lot of call for tuba right now. We're in the middle of 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. So
that's wild.
Yeah, he's like, put down the trombone. You're going to go defend these forward operating bases. You're going to go do patrols, and then we'll give you a workup. But you're Marines, you can do that. And they did it. They did a great job.
That is cool.
I don't know if they went back to tromboning. I'd like to think that they did. That's what they joined to do. But
that is cool, though.
Yeah, they can do both, Probably not at the same time. But
what a special place.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's real fun to be a part of it and to be around, particularly, the young Marines. I think that keeps me young. It's just something different. I get to deal with the young NCOs from the other services, and that's fun. I enjoy that. But there's something unique of being around, young Marines. Yeah, it's special.
Yeah, it'll be crazy for someday when you're, like in your 60s, 70s, looking back on all those times and like all the different places it's taken you, all the different career paths, all the different things you've learned. It's a really cool, special route that you've gone through.
Yeah, the Marine Corps has been good to me, man. I'm really fortunate to have been able to do that. And it's crazy because the Marines today are the same as they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, or even 100 years ago. I'm convinced that they're certainly more technologically advanced now. And they have a lot of capabilities they didn't have back then, but they're, I think in their heart, they're the same. Same mentality, same drive. Nothing's changed. That's cool. Not a lot of organizations can say that. It's like us in the post office, I think, are the only two.
The Postal Service.
Yeah, rain, sleet, or snow, right? Yeah. They're going out there, right?
Except Sundays.
Yeah, no. That's for the Lord.
Yeah.
You can wait till Monday.
And they always have their shorts on.
Yeah.
Even if it's like here, they'll be out, it's 20 below, they're still in their shorts. Just delivering.
Hey, man, stick to what you do.
Yeah. Well, thanks for jumping on again. I really appreciate it.
No,
Second
man,
time on the podcast.
It's my pleasure, man.
It's amazing. And we, last time we talked a lot about that crazy combat experience, and we kind of went through it step by step. And that one still stands out to me all the time from the example of what humans are really capable of and what people can do under extreme conditions and extreme stress, really to protect and save those around them on their left and their right. So if any listener hasn't heard Byron's first episode, you got to listen to that one. That story is so inspirational and so wild.
So I do have something for you. I want to surprise you with this. And so normally we do this over a handshake, but
this table's too long.
Yeah, it is too long. So we'll do it after the podcast. But this is my personal coin. And so I always wanted to be a Force Recon Marine, and I wanted to go to First Force. And the call sign for First Force Recon Company is Broadsword. And so when I was the commanding officer of First Force Recon Company, I was Broadsword 6. As we covered today, at some point, I transitioned into cyber. And so I did a hard pivot. And so I have for those of you who can't see this or listening, it's a broadsword that is piercing into a Wi-Fi signal. And so I think that exemplifies my career as a combination of force reconnaissance and cyber. And then one of the missions for Force Recon is maritime interdiction. And so we are the pirates that go after other pirates. And so on the reverse side is a skull and crossbones, except the skull is a QR code, which again is a combination of the offensive cyber I did with my Marines.
A personal coin. That's incredible. Yeah. Oh,
so
thank you so much.
Man. No, thank you, man. That's
incredible. Thank you. Wow, that's amazing. That is really amazing. The broadsword combination.
I thought that was clever. My kids, they don't think I'm clever at anything.
Yeah.
But
oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Byron.
No, it's my pleasure, man. I really appreciate you having me out here. And then, for that awesome day on the river, being able to disconnect, it's something I'll treasure for a long time.
Awesome. We got a big day tomorrow. Tough Fest.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, though.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man.
What a phenomenal conversation with Byron. Love that guy. He was so great to have at Tough Fest this year. Got the chance to go out, fish with him on the Madison, and then his speech at Tough Fest was great. Just a good human being. Remember, every single episode we're looking for that golden nugget to apply to our lives for that practical approach to mental toughness. Man, the big one for me was he talked about how he's still continuing to be a lifelong learner, even so much that now with his job in the Pentagon, very busy, very demanding, he's still teaching himself a second language on his own time. So he's learning Japanese, training himself through the app that he mentioned, but he also not only is doing that to stay sharp mentally, to learn something new mentally, but he talked about how he wants his kids to see him doing that. He wants his kids to see him learning, focusing on something, conquering something, working on that mastery. So not only does he want to stretch his mindset, he wants to teach his kids how to stretch theirs, and he's leading by example. That was a phenomenal tip, and it's really inspiring to see someone at that level with those kind of demands on their life doing that in their free time, focusing on a second language that he acknowledged he didn't even need. He's just doing it to learn and to be a lifelong learner and to apply that best practice in front of his children. Thanks for being here. What a great episode. Remember, if you are on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to this channel so that you can see each and every new episode drop as they drop on that weekly basis. If you're listening right now on the podcast store, just leave us a ranking or review. The rankings and the reviews do mean the world to us, and through the algorithm, they do let these episodes get out to more people so that we can transform more lives. Love you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.